What's up, everybody? I am Brandon Lundberg, senior analyst with Football Scout 365, and today we are going to talk about Michigan versus Alabama at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena on New Year's Day. It is a college football playoff semifinal. It is going to be an awesome game. Two big-time storied programs going head-to-head in Michigan and Alabama, two blue bloods of college football facing off. I can't wait for this game. It's going to be fun. Today, we're going to do a little bit of a matchup overview. We'll take a look at some of the data heading into this game, the matchup overall, some of the NFL draft prospects, and a little bit more. So there's a growing consensus out there that this is not a good matchup for the Michigan football team. I keep hearing about the Alabama defense and how they are going to wreak havoc on the Michigan offensive line. The other aspect that I hear a lot about is the Michigan defense versus the Alabama offense, and how is Michigan going to contain quarterback Jalen Milroe. I'm not hearing much about how dominant Michigan's defense is or how Alabama's going to find ways to move the football against this defense. So in addition to all of that, you've got the coaching matchup. I hear a lot of people out there saying Nick Saban's just going to coach circles around Jim Harbaugh, as if Jim Harbaugh has never coached a game in his life. All of these points are valid, and it covers a lot of the concerns that some of the Michigan fans have been talking about. But what about the Alabama side of things, and what are their concerns with regards to the Michigan football team? Because just not hearing enough about that. I don't know if we're going to actually hear a lot about that, to be honest with you, especially if you're watching ESPN recently. We all know there's a lot of bias going on with ESPN at the moment in regards to SEC football. So we'll kind of see how this shakes out among the analysts at ESPN, see if they kind of change it up a little bit as we get closer to this matchup. Now, before we get into the tactical on-field aspects, let's go through a few other factors that might play a role in this matchup. To begin, both teams loaded with future NFL talent. Michigan could see upwards of 20 players drafted in the 2024 NFL draft alone. Michigan, it's an experienced team. They have 40-plus seniors, and they are the 14th ranked team in terms of 24/7 Sports overall talent composite ranking, which accounts for all of the star rankings currently on each team's roster. A star player comparison, for example, Michigan, they currently boast 2 5-stars on the roster versus Alabama's 18 5-stars. What about overall strength of schedule for both of these teams? Should we care about this at all? We all know Michigan, they didn't play anyone until the final 3-game stretch of the regular season, but regardless, this is a 13-0 football team. Pro Football Focus ranks Michigan's schedule 11th on the season, while ESPN Power Index ranked their schedule 33rd overall. So take that for whatever it's worth. Michigan, they dominated Penn State and Happy Valley, a team that finished with a top defense in the country. Michigan dominated them running the football 30 straight times, by the way, to finish the game, again, on the road in a very raucous environment. They had some problems with Maryland, but the Maryland offense, that was a difficult test for Michigan, and the defense made the plays ultimately that won a sandwich game on the road between that Penn State and Ohio State game. Now, to end the regular season, Michigan would beat Ohio State at home 30-24. They contained the best player in college football, in my opinion, Marvin Harrison Jr. Michigan was uber efficient versus a very good Ohio State defense. J.J. McCarthy, he made the huge plays in the key moments that were needed in the passing game. They ran the ball well enough in key moments, and the second overall Michigan defense made the key plays to win this game, and the final interception at the end to put that exclamation point on this overall. Now, Alabama's schedule strength and performance. Alabama, as you know, they play in the SEC, so we have to assume that they played a difficult schedule, right? They're 12-1. According to PFF, they have the 12th most difficult schedule in 2023. The ESPN Football Power Index says that they have the 7th most difficult schedule. They lost to Texas at home by 10 in September. The argument is they were not the team that they are now. Milroe was not playing at the same level that he is currently, and that is true. This Alabama team is ascending. Their big wins are Ole Miss at home, 24-10, LSU at home, 42-28. They barely escaped Auburn. They needed a miracle to win that game, and it was Jalen Milroe who delivered at the end. Touchdown to Isaiah Bond on a huge 4th and goal play. I think it was like a 30-yard touchdown pass there at the end to the back corner of the end zone. And then they beat Georgia in the SEC title game. Not a huge surprise win. There were a lot of people out there that believed Alabama matched up well against Georgia and could beat them or at least pose a huge challenge for Georgia. And ultimately, they defeated them in the SEC title game. I still see the schedule strength aspect of this as being in favor of Alabama, but just slightly. And that's more so because they did play Texas to start the season. And that was a building block game. And this is a team that has shown resiliency throughout the year. They were down in some games. They came back in some games. Jalen Milroe really grew a lot throughout the season. So I kind of give the nod to Alabama in that regard. But I do see Ohio State at the same level as Georgia in regards as a true test for Michigan. And really this matchup for Michigan and Alabama, I look at those two games. I look at Alabama versus Georgia and Michigan versus Ohio State. And I look at the two teams in the transitive property and I think, okay, yeah, this is going to be one of those games. It's going to be tight-knit, close defensive battle at the end of the day. So we talked about overall roster talent and schedule strength. Let's talk about the numbers within the matchup that really stand out. Let's start with the play style of both teams. Michigan, obviously, they like to run the football. That's been obvious. They use the run game to set up play action opportunities. They are not running the football, though, as efficiently this year as compared to the previous two seasons. They ranked 73rd in yards per rush attempt on the year. Michigan, they faced a lot of third and long situations this year due to their lack of being able to run it as effectively. And that's where J.J. McCarthy has been magic all year. J.J. currently has the highest QBR in third and fourth down and obvious plays of 4 yards or longer. He's had 56 of those occurrences this year. His average throw depth is 10 yards in these scenarios as well. So these aren't just underneath throws with receivers making plays. These are throws where he has to get the ball to the sticks or beyond the sticks in key third down situations. That's a data point to pay attention to heading into big matchups like this. The other key factors in this Michigan offense is going to be their ability to run the football. As I mentioned, they're not as good as previous years, but Blake Corum, a tough runner. Donovan Edwards, when he's on the field, he can hit the home run. He has not done it anywhere close to the level that he did it a year ago, but he did do it against Penn State in a key moment. He's also an excellent receiver out of the backfield. That is why he is one of my favorite NFL draft prospects. He's kind of sneaky under the radar if he were to come out this year. I still think he should. He's a guy that can line up anywhere on the field. He's going to have to be a factor in this game, by the way. He's going to be a guy that Michigan will need to try to match up with a linebacker, somebody who is not at the same level of athleticism as him. I know Nick Saban is probably all over this already, but he is a guy who can open some things up potentially for another player on the field. You got a running back that you have to worry about. It could open something up for a tight end down the seam like a Colston Loveland or an A.J. Barner in a key situation, and that's what Michigan's going to have to do. It's going to be the cat and mouse effect in this game. I think Donovan Edwards is going to be a key player. He's going to play a key role in that regard. It'd be crazy for Michigan not to utilize him more. Now, as far as the Michigan receivers on the outside, I am a little concerned with their ability to separate. That could be a problem in this game. And the offensive line's ability to handle a pass rush, not allowing these guys enough time to get open. So once again, it will probably come down to Michigan's ability to hit their tight ends in key moments, but they cannot get behind the chains. I know I just talked about J.J. being amazing in third down and long situations, but I don't think that's going to be a winning formula in a championship matchup like this. I know he was able to do it against Ohio State in key moments, JJ was, but I'm not somebody who believes that this is going to really work out against a Nick Saban-led defense in a championship matchup at the highest level right now. Michigan, they're going to have to utilize J.J. McCarthy, I think, as a runner a little bit more. Zone read scenarios are going to have to come into play. And for the love of God, utilize an RPO or two in this game. Let's attack those linebackers. Let's get them, on their heels a little bit. Let's try to sneak some things over the top of them and try to have our tight ends make plays at the second and third level of the defense. So what about the Alabama offensive style of play in 2023? We know that they want to run the football. Tommy Rees, he's their offensive coordinator. He's evolved a lot since the earlier stages of this season. He had to adapt his play calling to the Jalen Milroe style. And Milroe, by the way, is a very Jalen Hurts kind of player. Not exactly built like Jalen Hurts, but he's a big dude. He's 6'2", 220 plus pounds. He can run the football, and they have learned to leverage that to open up the offense more. They are still a balanced offense overall. They do run the ball well, but they are not as dominant as past Alabama teams at the running back position. And even up front on the offensive line, it's not as dominant as it has been in previous years. They do average 4.3 yards per rush attempt on the season. They do have a high number of explosive 10-plus yard runs on the season as well. It's a three-headed monster for Alabama. They do not have a 1,000-yard rusher, but Jace McClellan, he's a solid running back with NFL potential. Roydell Williams, he's got 560 yards on the season. And then you've got Jalen Milroe, third on the rushing list for this offense with 468 yards. But he also finds the end zone at an amazing clip. By the way, he's got 12 rushing touchdowns this year. That's going to be a huge factor, I believe, in this game. Now, on the defensive side of the football for Alabama, they have 2 first-round NFL corners in Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold. Both are very good in zone coverage. They've got solid man-to-man skills. I believe this to be their primary strength on defense, and I expect them to challenge Michigan receivers early in press coverage. They're going to do whatever it takes to slow down any of the speed that Michigan might try to utilize on the outside with Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson. That way, it can allow their pass rush the chance to get to J.J., frazzle him a little bit so that they can add that extra body in the box as well. They're also solid at the safety position. The safeties can cover as well out there. They have NFL-level safeties on defense in Caleb Downs and Malachi Moore, by the way. The linebackers are where Michigan is going to try to get a matchup versus their tight ends, with Deontay Lawson being a potential weak point in coverage to exploit. That's an area that can be covered up, though, by these safeties for Alabama. What about the Alabama defensive front? They've got 2 edge rushers that I absolutely love, Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell. Both strong edge run defenders as well. The interior players are also solid, but the run defense does allow 124 yards per game, and that might be enough yardage for Michigan to kind of win this game. If Michigan's in the 120s to 150s, it's going to open some things up offensively, I believe, for shots down the field throughout the game. And if Michigan can get there and they can attack the interior of that defensive line, pick up 4, 5, 6 yards, a couple chunk plays here and there, I think that's going to be a huge difference for the Michigan offense. But again, something to pay attention to in this matchup. Overall, I believe this defense, it's going to keep Michigan's receivers in check on the outside. It's all going to come down to Michigan avoiding 3rd and long situations where they have to block the athletes from the Alabama defensive line, something that Penn State exploited massively. So Michigan's got to find a way to prevent a player like Dallas Turner, a potential top 10 NFL draft pick, from just dominating this game. If he is dominating, Michigan is going to be in big trouble, by the way. So I've talked about the Michigan offense, the Alabama defense. What about this Michigan defense? What is this Michigan defense going to need to do in order to win this football game? I really believe it's going to come down to containing Jalen Milroe. If you watch this Michigan defense, a lot of times they don't send a ton of guys to get extra pressure. They're playing back, they're playing coverage, they're playing super disciplined. They'll keep everything in front of them. I think that the key is going to be not allowing Jalen Milroe to get loose in the run game and make plays in that way. You want Jalen Milroe to stay contained in the pocket. You want Jalen Milroe to throw the football, and you want to capitalize on turnovers, make plays in the secondary. On the road against Maryland, for example, they had to contain Talia Tungavailoa as a runner. They were able to do that. He would try to escape the pocket, and they had some different kind of twists and stunts and pressures that forced him to escape, and he likes to do that little twist move, by the way, and then they would have a linebacker right in his face. As soon as he tried to turn around outside, he had nowhere to go. That was just a solid game plan by the Michigan defense, and it was key moments in that game where Michigan was in a 1-score game with them at the end, and the defense had to create a turnover. They were able to do that. And then come Ohio State week, Michigan was able to do the same thing against Ohio State. Key moment, key situation. They add extra pressure, run a stunt in the middle, get to Kyle McCord, force a throw, and it's intercepted at the end to close it out. You don't get pressure on Kyle McCord in that key moment, Marvin Harrison could be walking into the end zone, and we're talking Ohio State and Alabama instead of Michigan versus Alabama right now. So something to think about in that regards is this Michigan defense, super underrated, I think, super undervalued, not talked about enough. This is a very dominant defense. This has been one of the best defenses for 3 consecutive years, and it's because this defense is being led by NFL defensive coordinators. In 2021, it was Mike Macdonald, who is the defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens currently. 2022 and 2023, it's another former Ravens assistant in Jesse Minter, who has just absolutely been awesome as a defensive coordinator for Michigan. So ultimately, something to keep an eye on. Truly believe in this Michigan defense being a factor in this game. And I think that they will find a way to exploit Jalen Milroe's weaknesses. And I think it's going to come down to just keeping him in structure. Force him to stay in the pocket, force him to make throws, don't let him escape and make huge plays with his legs. I know, easier said than done, but we'll see how this Michigan defense matches up in that regard. So at the end of the day, how can Michigan win this football game? I'll summarize this real quick. It's going to come down to J.J. McCarthy at the end of the day. Past teams in championship scenarios versus Alabama, they have had elite quarterback play. J.J. McCarthy, he was brought to Michigan and developed to deliver this factor in these big games. His ability to make plays in key moments, especially on third down, as we mentioned before, are going to be critical for Michigan. They're going to need him to be involved as a runner as well. They still must find a way, though, to run the football effectively on first and second down. If they can run it, they can use play action and potentially exploit an Alabama defense that has given up a lot of 20-plus yard plays through the air this season. Now, how can Alabama win? For Alabama, it's going to come down to stopping Michigan's run game. They're going to have to control the line of scrimmage. They're going to have to place J.J. McCarthy in uncomfortable second and third and long situations as a passer. If J.J. is facing a lot of second and third and 5 or longer scenarios, not sure the Michigan tackles are going to be able to hold up well. So he's going to have to run the football a lot more than we've seen him do this year. I think, you kind of loosen the reins up in that regard and see what he can do. Now, on the offensive side of the football for Alabama, they're going to have to run it. They're going to need to keep the Michigan defense on its heels with Milroe as a runner and the use of RPO and play action to hit those explosives down the field. It's going to be huge for this offense. That's going to do it for today's episode. Let me know what you think about this college football playoff semifinal matchup. Who's going to win this game? Who's going to be the game MVP? Will it be Michigan or Alabama playing in the college football playoff national title? Please let us know in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, tell someone about us, and until next time, stay tuned for more great content as we have a lot of NFL draft content on the way.